Yes, everyone, how are we doing? And welcome to a new video on the Biased Man City Fan YouTube channel. As you can tell by the thumbnail and the title of this video, it is, of course, the Manchester City versus Tottenham Hotspur preview. Now, look, before I get into discussing this game, however, I'll get it out there nice and early. I'll plug it as soon as I start it. Why is it still paying attention? With it being a home game tomorrow, with it being the first home game of the season, I will, of course, have a matchday vlog out for you as soon as the game finishes. So, look, be whatever you need to be following, be subscribed, have your notifications on, do whatever you need to do to be ready to watch what I'm going to try and make the best matchday vlog possible for you lot. I'm going to have it out as soon as I'm back from the game. So yeah, any suggestions for it, anything you want to see that I didn't previously do in last season, anything like that, any way I can upgrade my matchday vlogs, give me a message on Instagram, leave a comment, do what you need to do, let me know. I'm always open to ideas. Now let's get into discussing this game. We're of course coming off the back of, well, I was going to say a great result. It was a great result, of course. Wolves 0, Manchester City 4. It was a brilliant result, but I mean, it was the only result so far this season. It was the first game of the season, but I tell you what, I was optimistic anyway. I was excited anyway. I had a good feeling around this season and that Wolves game, but it outlived my expectations. If you've not seen my match review for that game, then feel free to go and give it a watch. It did fairly well. So look, thank you for everyone who watched it, who supported the video. Now, what can we take from that Wolves game? Well, Manchester City are brilliant. We're excellent. We're going to win a lot, aren't we? No, look, City were good though. We were brilliant. And I stand by what I said. We did outperform my expectations for the game. But then to be fair, from that game week, so did Tottenham. In my match review for the Wolves game, I said the two best teams of the game week, in my opinion anyway, were Manchester City and Tottenham Hotspur. It just works out, doesn't it, that in game week number 2, typical, isn't it, that the two teams end up facing each other. But I'm backing City to come out on top of this. I'll spoil it nice and early for you, so I don't think you'd have been expecting anything else, would you? But I'm feeling confident, I'm feeling excited, I'm feeling ready. It feels like a lifetime since we've been back at the Etihad. I feel like this summer break, even though City had the Club World Cup in between, I feel like I've missed it longer than the previous ones. I feel like it's been a longer break than the previous ones. And I don't know if that's just because, we had the unusual feeling this summer of not being the current champions, not being the current, any silverware or anything, So I don't know if we had, fans and of course players, everyone had that more, stronger eagerness for the season to start getting ready for it. But it looked like that was the case with the players anyway. In that Wolves game, there's clearly a fight there, a desire there, and a strong intention to try and win the Premier League, win it back. I mean, look, there's a lot of players in the squad right now, whether they signed previous year, or the previous summer or January. There was a lot of business done in January, and of course, there's a fair few signings this summer. There's a lot of players in this current Manchester City team who are yet to win a trophy with us, and it's. And you compare it to other players in there who've won the lot, won the treble, won multiple Premier Leagues. So there's a good mixture of winners who've won at other teams are coming to City to win even more, and just young players that are energetic and ready and just want to succeed. So there's a good balance, I think, in Manchester City. But focusing on this Tottenham Hotspur game, I think it's going to be an interesting one. Purely when you think of last season. Now, as I just said, there was a fair bit of business done in January, and a lot of our January signings we didn't see. A lot of last season, we've seen a few games, and then Pep just sort of stuck to what he had prior to that. And then with the 4 new main first team additions, last season was a disaster for City for good periods of it. And one of the biggest anyway results that stick out in our minds, the biggest home defeat, arguably the one that was the biggest shock, was Manchester City 0, Tottenham Hotspur 4. It was of course this fixture last year. And it ended a huge unbeaten streak, at the Etihad Stadium that went on for a good few seasons. I mean, we lost that, and we lost that big time. We were battered by Tottenham Hotspur. And this is a Tottenham Hotspur that ended up finishing 17th in the Premier League. So it shows how bad City were during that period, doesn't it? But I think it's just interesting to see the difference in how City perform this season compared to last season. I feel like that was one of the earlier games in that bad November to January period that we had. Tottenham Hotspur, the 4-0 loss was one of the earlier games that we lost, wasn't it? But it's going to be interesting to see how we got on compared to last season, where we had that big fall off, had that big disaster game. So that first of all is a reason why it is going to be interesting. And look, I suppose not even just from a Manchester City perspective. You look at it from a Tottenham Hotspur perspective, of course, they probably have a different feeling coming into this one. The current European champions. I mean, I know it's Europa League, but they're still European champions coming into this one. They've won a trophy. They've won more than City did last season. a new manager, some new players. There's a whole new feel around Tottenham Hotspur as well, isn't there? So it's going to be interesting for both sides to see how both sides compare to what they did the previous season. Now, look, I think regardless of result, whether City win, lose or draw, it's going to be an upgrade to last season. I'm pretty confident on that. Spurs won't ever beat us 4-0 yesterday again, I'll tell you that. But as I said, it's going to be there's going to be a lot to look at. And I might even, I'm not ruining my Saturday morning like this, but I might even later today have a little rewatch, at least extended highlights of that City Tottenham game from last season and just see the differences. Sort of I analyse the game while I'm there, while I'm watching it, when I rewatch it a match a day and stuff like that, just to proper hone in and focus on the differences, because this is a new, I know it's a new completely manager, a new setup for Tottenham, of course, but it's not just the players that changed at City, is it? There's a whole new system, a whole new coaching team. There's a whole lot of change at City. So, yeah. I could have summarised this a lot quicker for you, couldn't I? But long story short, I'm excited to see the differences between this season and last season. Now, if you were somehow trying to link Manchester City and Tottenham Hotspur together, the first name that would probably come to your mind right now is Savinho. Of course, there's been a lot of business in the past 2 weeks, I'd say, with Savinho, and Tottenham Hotspur seems to be the only club that are interested in getting him signed. Now, I'd say compared to when I filmed my Wolves post-match reaction, I'm a little bit more confident in Savinho staying at the club this summer, or you could, vice versa. I'm more confident that he doesn't leave this summer. It's the same thing. I am. There's been reports of that City, there's a member in the City hierarchy that are reluctant. They're refusing to let Savinho go unless it's an insane offer. They're looking at that Cole Palmer move to Chelsea a few years ago, and whether or not us fans look at it and go, well, would he have really got that level straight away at City? I think he needed the move, in my opinion. Anyway, that's my opinion. But as much as he needed the move for his career, you've still got to look at it as a mistake of a signing. Look at the player he is now. We let him go for 50 million. He's one of the best players in the league now. So they don't want to make another mistake like that. And the way I see things, not to make this whole video or a whole massive section on this Savinho and Rodrigo segment, I think in the next couple of weeks before the transfer window finishes anyway, whether City keeps Savinho or let him go, I am going to make a whole YouTube video dedicated on this whole transfer saga, these two, Rodrigo, Savinho. I'm going to make a whole video on it because there's a lot to think about, a lot to discuss. I've got a lot of thoughts on it, and I don't want to take it all up in this video, but I'm at a stage where I'd be happy to somewhat let Savinho go. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's got a good future, and I think Tottenham, they'll be getting a great player on their hands, but Rodrigo excites me. The idea of seeing Rodrigo in a Manchester City shirt, it really excites me. So, yeah, there's a lot to be discussed on that, and as I said, regardless of how this transfer goes, whether City do end up selling him to Spurs or we don't and we keep him, we don't get Rodrigo, I'll discuss that at a later date. But all I will say is I'm filming this early on a Friday morning. This will be out once again, as most previews will always be, before Pep Guardiola's press conference. Now, for the Wolves game, I did the same again. I filmed it before the Pep's preview came out, uploaded it before Pep's preview came out, and I touched on Savinho a little bit. I spoke about the speculation, but I didn't know whether he'd be part of the squad. I didn't put him in my starting 11, but I wouldn't have anyway. But I didn't know what had happened. No one knew what Pep would say, and it turned out that Savinho was injured for the game, according to Pep Guardiola. It was a little bit of irony, a little bit unusual, the way that Pep announced Savinho's injury and Ederson's injury, who's also, of course, linked away with the club at the minute. He started off the press conference by saying about how, this player's injured, this player's injured, this player's injured, this player's not fit, this player's not fit. And then when he got to speaking about Savinho and Ederson, ding! It's some sort of light bulb that just sparks off in his head. He went, oh yeah, of course, I forgot. They're both injured or they're both not fit or whatever. He said Ederson had stomach bug. Savinho was injured, like I said, and then a few hours prior to kickoff, Savinho was posting pictures of himself in a gym on his Instagram story. So take with that what you will. I'd expect similar for the Tottenham game tomorrow. I'd expect similar. I'm not saying that Ederson. It'd be interesting to see what he says about Ederson, because of course he's going to be asked about it, and I'm going to be ready, waiting. I don't know if it'll be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whenever his press conference is. I'm going to have my alarm set for it, because last week we had a lot to dive in about it. But Ederson, we know he's back in training. We've seen videos and pictures and everything of him back in training. So that stomach bug, if he's in and around the team, it's clearly gone. And what he'll say about Savinho, I don't know. But I would expect with the speculation, especially with Savinho, and the team we're coming up against being Tottenham Hotspur, the team that he's being linked with, I'd be surprised to see Savinho in the team for tomorrow. And speaking of City's training, of course, there was a few other things that we noticed. Thomas Tuchel came for a visit after that Wolves game. Coincidence? I don't think so, after how good John Stones was. But look, as far as City training, everyone but Kovacic, it seems, is back in training. Rodri's in training, Phil Foden's in training, both of them are in training anyway. Both travelled with the squad to Wolves but weren't fit enough to play. You'd expect that to still be the case against Tottenham. I wouldn't be rushing either of them back with the quality we've got in their positions already. I wouldn't be rushing either of them. And Josko Vardiol is back in Manchester City training. He hadn't been training prior to the Wolves game. He wasn't part of the squad, wasn't part of the travelling squad. He's back in training now, so again, likewise with the others, I don't expect him to be starting this game. I wouldn't start him if he's just come back. And the defensive partnership we had against Wolves, I want to see that again. John Stones and Ruben Diaz. It was reminiscent of old times, wasn't it? But Gvardiol's back. That's positive. He's a step closer to being back. The way I'm sort of viewing a lot of these injuries and a lot of these players with lack of fitnesses and stuff like that, I think we can cope against anyone with the squad we've got. I'm more than confident in this team. I was even before the Wolves game, but my mind's not on Tottenham with these guys. My mind's not on Brighton. I'm thinking the first game back after the 2 week, was it 1 week, 2 week, whatever it is, international break. I'm thinking United at home. This is what I'm thinking about. Phil Foden, Rodri, Gvardiol. I'm thinking about United. I don't want to rush him back and then have them out, especially Rodri and Phil Foden. And all three, to be fair. Gvardiol was our player of the season last season, wasn't he? So the three of our most important players. And yeah, the last thing we want to be doing is rushing them back. Now, look, I think I've spoke individually on a fair few of the players that there was to speak about, that was concerning for this game. Let's get into my predicted starting 11. Now, look, as I did for the Wolves game and what I would normally do and will do for the future in these previews is I go through them player by player, and I am going to speak on them somewhat player by player, but what I will say to save a good 3 or 4 minutes of your time. So look, I'm doing you a favour here. If you're still watching, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'm saying? I'm doing you a favour, but I'm going to save a fair few minutes of your time. I would have the exact starting 11 player for player that we had against Wolves, except I would take out Doku and I would put in Ryan Cherki. Now, if you've got a tinker with the way that we set up and put Bob out on a left in periods and put Cherki out on the right, or you're dragging players in and around positions. I don't care how we do it. We know that Pep plays and the madness and how we've seen the wingers and how the interchange and everything like that. We know the way that City play. We don't stick to one structure, do we? Players like to float and stuff like that. And Ryan Cherki, I know people might say, look, he's an attacking midfielder, he's a right winger. Look, they can all play everywhere, can't he? He's along the front three. As long as he's on the pitch, that's all I want to say. I thought it was exceptional, his impacts off the bench against Wolves. Came on within a few minutes, got a goal. It was brilliant to see, wasn't it? So I want to see him starting. And also, I feel like Doku wasn't all that good against Wolves either. For a performance where I thought a lot of City players were really good, I felt like Doku was a little bit on the weaker side. So yeah, I want to be seeing Ryan Cherki in his starting 11. And as I said, the rest of it I keep the same. I know I just said Ederson's fit for this game, and he is supposed to be. But while there's all this speculation going on, and with how good James Trafford actually was against Wolves, I want him starting. I think this would be an interesting one for him as well, because Wolves, as much as they had a few goals and goals and stuff like that, a couple, but I don't think James Trafford was massively tested. His distribution was good. I think for our third goal, he pretty much set us up with a brilliant pass out. And I've seen him come out a few times, win a header, to do what is expected of a Manchester City Pep Guardiola goalkeeper, isn't it? So I thought he was good against Wolves, but I think, of course, Tottenham, a better attack, a better squad. It'll be a bigger test for Trafford, so I'd want to see that. And as I said, while the speculation's going on with Ederson, I wouldn't be playing Trafford. In the meantime, between this Wolves match reaction and this preview, Rico Lewis, it has been announced, not by the club, but by various journalists, well-respected journalists, that Rico Lewis will be extending his Manchester City contract, which is music to my ears. Look, prior to the Wolves game, it looked like he was going to be on the way out. It looked like he was leaving the club. Nottingham Forest was sniffing, and it looked like Rico wanted the move. I didn't expect him to play in that Wolves game because of that. But Pep gave him a start. We all know that Pep's a big fan of Rico, and I'm glad he is. And I'm glad he's staying. I'm glad he started him. I'm glad that whatever's changed Rico Lewis's mind, whether it's the offer from the club, whether it was that performance against Wolves, whether it was Pep Guardiola himself, I don't care what the reason was. I'm just happy that Rico Lewis has changed his mind, because I think he's a big player, and this is his chance now. He wants to stick about to try and earn his spot and play more football and stuff like that, then look, if his main position when he's playing for City is right back and Manchester City don't have a naturally gifted right back there, he's filling in that position. Make it your own. This is your season, Rico, to make it your own. We didn't sign a right back this summer. You're staying, you're sticking about, which I'm pleased with. You're fighting for your spot. This is your chance. So I'm happy with that. As far as the defensive partnership, how good was it seeing John Stones back? Exceptional. I'll answer you that. Exceptional. A fully fit John Stones is one of the best defenders in world football. One of the best midfielders too. We all know that. He was incredible. Ruben Diaz, it was good seeing him back. I thought Aït-Nouri was exceptional. Again, I thought he held his own against Wolves. I thought he did what he was asked of him. He's going to have a bigger test against Kudus this time. So let's see how he gets on in that one. I'd back him. Of course I would. Nico in the midfield as well, I think would be crazy not to be starting him. We've seen how he filled in for Rodri. I mean, he did come off. We didn't even come off, did he? Finish the game with a little bit of a problem with his arm, but he was in training. I've seen absolutely nothing of there being any issue in that. So, you'd expect Nico to start. I mean, look, it's just the same attacking team. We know what Haaland's like in August, in the month of August. He loves it. He loves a goal against Tottenham as well. That's that really, isn't it? That's the reason I want to see him. Of course, you look at other players who might be unlucky not to get a pick and not get a start. I think Marmoush is the one that springs to mind the most with all the players that are fit. And I know it's a bit mental, isn't it? But you just look at how good Oscar Bob was. You look at how good Tijani Reinders was. You look at how good Bernardo Silva was. Ryan Cherky off the bench. I mean, look, if Cherky doesn't start and Marmoush starts, then that's fine. But I just want to see Cherky. He's like our fresh new toy, shiny new toy, isn't it? The arrogance about him is brilliant to see. You know that he knows he's that good. It's just great, isn't it? So I want to see Cherky starting. So yeah, feel a bit bad for Omar Mamouche, but he'll get his football. I think at the moment, with it being this early into the season, we're not at a stage where we need to be rotating. We're not at a stage where we need to be thinking, right, we know John Stones gets, picks up niggles after however many minutes, or we know or we know Phil Foden when he's back, or Rodri. We're not at a point where we've got to be monitoring players. I don't think it's one game a week for the first 3 or 4 or 5 game weeks of the season. And then when games start coming thick and fast, when we start getting Champions League group stages, when we start getting FA Cup games, Carabao Cup games, whatever it may be, that's when we've got to start looking at it and go, right, do we want Stones for this Champions League game, or should we save him for the weekend? You understand? So for now, in my opinion anyway, people are entitled to their own, of course. Let me know yours, but I don't think we're at a point where we should be rotating or saving or anything like that, trying to mind fitness. Everyone should be ready. We've had the break. We've had a tiny pre-season. Wolves felt like a pre-season game. We're that comfortable at times. We've had a fair few weeks now where the team's been back together. The players have been back together, preparing together. So yeah, I wouldn't be rotating. I wouldn't be trying to save anyone. I want to see a strong starting 11, and that is, of course, what I believe we will see against Tottenham tomorrow. And well, look, I think that's everything I've been wanting to touch on. Lucky you lot again, hey? 20-minute video once again. Look, yeah, I think I've spoken everything I needed to. Savinho was one of the main talking points, and I'm just guessing, it's too early before Pep's press conference. I wanted to get it out nice and early on your Friday morning. So, look, if I'm wrong, if anything, I mean, I'm probably, if Pep's press conference gives us enough information like last week anyway, then I'll make a TikTok about it straight after it. So, if you're watching this prior to Pep's press conference or prior to my TikTok video, then go over there, give that a viewing, give that a watching, if there's an update on Savinho and stuff like that. But that's my predictions. Look, I'm going with a City 2-0 win. Another clean sheet for City. It's like a new makeshift defence, a new goalkeeper. There's a new feeling, new defensive coach in Kolo Toure. I think we're going to work wonders. Tottenham, of course, a bigger test than Wolves. But, as I said, I'm going with a score prediction of Manchester City 2, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Make sure to let me know your score predictions in the comments. Okay, let me know. As I said at the start of this video, matchday vlog, the first matchday vlog of the season. So I am looking forward to it. I'm excited for it. There's going to be, my first few matchday vlogs, by the way, are going to be absolutely incredible games. You think Tottenham Hotspur at home. I've not got tickets to Brighton away. Next up, after Tottenham, Manchester United at home. Insane. One after that, Arsenal away. Your boy only went and got tickets as well, didn't he? So come on, that's what I'm talking about. The first 3 matchday vlogs of the season are going to be Tottenham United and Arsenal away. Let's have it! So, yeah, look, subscribe to the channel. There's some exciting stuff for you coming out this season. I'm going to try and put as much effort into this as physically possible. So, yeah, just like this video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for taking the time out of your Friday to watch this. And come on, City. Come on!